Sorry, folks, I should have said that we will be recording this and putting it on the website. Sorry, Tania. So if you don't want your face on the video, please blank your screen now.
Okay. So thank you very much, Carol, and thank you for everybody for attending today. I'm really happy to be here to talk to you about shared haemodialysis care, to give you a little bit of an insight about why we are, those who have been doing it for so long, and we've been doing it for over 11 years now in the United Kingdom, why we are so passionate about it. So I hope by the end of the sessions today that through myself and the other speakers, we will give you a thorough insight into what shared haemodialysis care is for both patients and for staff. And then you'll have enough understanding, I hope, to be able to explore it yourself if you wish to. So first of all, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to let Tara introduce you to shared haemodialysis care. Tara is a patient who has experienced it herself. So I'm going to see if I can get the YouTube video up for you. It's a 2 or 3 minutes video, and we'll see if it comes up. There we go.
I've been asked what is shared care and what does it mean to me. Shared care is the middle ground between fully being at home but still having some independence, but supported by your renal staff. And that can be anything for anybody. That can be something as small as weighing yourself or doing your blood pressure, all the way up to lying and priming a machine and completing your own dialysis session on your own. But it's that choice that you don't have to go all the way out to home, but you've still got that independence to start trying and experimenting with dialysis. What are you comfortable with? What are you not comfortable with? And that can vary from person to person. And it's not about saying that, you know, you have to do everything, even if it's just a little bit. It's that responsibility. It's that taking control again. I think quite often as patients, we get into the habit of kind of being cared for. The patient does the patient thing and the nurse does the nurse thing. When actually it should be a relationship between the two. And the nurse facilitating that, or the medic facilitating that, and the patient taking some responsibility for their own health, because that's how you get the best treatment at the end of the day. Nobody knows your body better than you. And over the time that I did shared care, you know, there was days where I couldn't do my own dialysis. Now, if I was at home, that would have been really tricky. But in hospital, I had the staff to support me, and you know, some days when I was sick, they'd come in and they'd line and prime my machine, and I'd just do the rest. And then other days I'd be left to my own devices, and that's the joy and that's the difference between what shared care can offer. Patients that I spoke to, not all of them want to go home. Being at home means that you're mixing your dialysis with your home life. If you've got children at home, you might not want them to see that. And for me, it created a massive isolation from anybody. I had no reason to leave the house when I was on dialysis at home. Because everything that I needed was there, and I didn't have the energy to go out. Whereas shared care in centre kind of forced me to go out. I spoke to other people, I saw the staff, I saw other patients, and it really benefited me. Not everybody wants to go home, and I still wouldn't, when I was back on dialysis, go home with it. You know, I did just under 10 months in centre. I got great dialysis. I had a great relationship with the staff. I could trust them, and it built my confidence up. And that's what we're looking for. You know, we're not expecting everybody to do everything. Just some people or most people to do something. And when you speak to patients, you actually find out they're quite keen to get involved. I think it's very easy just to presume, oh, so and so can't do this because of this. And it's about talking to them and building up that rapport. And slowly we'll see the improvements. And then if people want to go home, great. But if they don't, we should never do that. So yeah, encouraging shared care, motivating staff, motivating your patients is really, really important. And I think that through that, patients are going to get a better dialysis, staff are going to have a better relationship, and it's all going to work much better. Thank you for listening.
Okay. I'm just going to stop sharing for a second while I get my other screen up. So bear with me. I can just get rid of this bar, then I can share my slides. Sorry, folks. You know, when the taskbar is over where you want to click and you can't get in.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, it popped back up every time before, so I can't actually get to my slides. Hang on. Can I move this? Can you move the bar down? There we go. I was able to move it. Sorry about that. Okay, so Tara's very nicely described what shared care is for her, how she started and why she was doing it. So just a little bit about who has already had some insight into shared haemodialysis care in Ireland. As you can see, we've had about 39 members of staff already come on shared care training. So you might recognise some of these units here from Northern and Southern Ireland who've already participated in the training. We did previously have an awareness day in November 2019 that was held. We had a number of patients and staff come along and hear about shared care and the stories that they had to tell. So it is around, it's happening in Ireland. So we're hoping that we can spread it to the rest of the units. So why we started shared care originally, it was about bridging the gap. So normally in centre haemodialysis, nurses are trained to provide the dialysis care, aren't they? And they're trained to provide the dialysis care because they are the experts in what they do. But unfortunately, this can lead to it feeling a little bit paternalistic, a little bit controlling when you're a patient. And it does encourage that role to be more passive than active. On the other side of the fence, we've got patients that want to do home haemodialysis, and then we have nurses who train them to teach. They're trained to teach, sorry, and they teach for full independence and they hand over that full control to the patients there. But there's nothing in between, and that was historically the case. So shared haemodialysis care is the middle ground. Trainings provided by myself on the course to provide that involving mindset for nurses. And what it does is facilitate and enable patients and encourage them to be a little bit more active and share some of that control. So rather than being done to, they're doing with the staff. It's much more of a team approach. And it's still care. Whether it's providing hands-on care or teaching or a little bit of both, it's still caring because it's meeting the needs of patients. So this is the vision for shared haemodialysis care, is that all units will have provide the opportunity, the choice and the information for patients to participate in aspects of their treatment. So whether they want to do a little bit or they want to do a lot, the opportunity is offered to everybody. So it gives everybody a chance. So it's about supporting and working with people, not for people. And we know that people who are supported to look after themselves have much better experiences and ultimately have better outcomes, whether that's through just being happier doing something for themselves and feeling a bit more independent, or actually having a bit more knowledge to take care of themselves better between their dialysis sessions. So our motto really is, let us help you to help yourself. So we're taking our hands off really. We're saying, we're not going to do everything to you anymore. We're going to say to you, would you like to learn some of the aspects to do yourself alongside us? We're sharing the care. So it's not quite so full on. It's allowing a little bit of space for you to choose to do something for yourself if you want to do it. And I think this is really important to get out the way. At first, it's what shared care isn't. It really isn't about getting patients to do all the staff's work. It's not about cost saving. It's not about pushing patients to do home dialysis. It's really not about forcing or coercing anybody to do anything. What it is discovering what motivates people and understanding why and how participating in your own care might help your experience of haemodialysis whilst you're in the unit. And you can see the two extremes here. We've got something that's very simple task to do, which is literally just measuring the tapes that a lot of you will be familiar with to put over your fistulas to secure the fistula needles. Just simply measuring that and helping out the nurse doing that, or possibly needling yourself. And many patients do that as well. Either or is shared haemodialysis care. And when we think about it, when we think about how we're talking about people feeling better about themselves, we understood that when we started doing shared haemodialysis care, that it fitted into this lovely sort of lotus flower of well-being. And there were many reasons for that. By doing things with the nurse, it's providing that connected relationship, which is really nice to see and experience for people. It's like being taught to do something alongside. You have very different conversations when you're learning how to do something with your nurse, rather than being done to, everything being done for you. It keeps people active, it keeps people stimulated. There's lots of things to talk about, there's lots of learning to be done, and that lifts people's spirits sometimes. It enables people to give back, perhaps. They might want to help the nurses. They might want to feel like they're doing something of use when they're in the unit, or they might just want to feel like they're giving to themselves a little bit. And whatever amount is absolutely fine. And it also enables people to start taking notice about what's going on around them, stops people from feeling quite so insular. And when people start feeling a little bit in more control, you start feeling a little bit lighter about your life generally. It's awful, isn't it, when you've got that really heavy feeling when control's taken away from you altogether and it becomes a little bit of a drudge. But you can imagine when you're coming into your dialysis unit and there's something for you to do that day, there's some sort of learning to be done, there's some achievement to be gained from that day, then that changes how you feel about your dialysis. So it's very much a part of becoming part of the team, having more control, having lots of choices as to what you might want to learn, how much you want to learn, when you want to learn it, when you don't want to learn it. It's very, very flexible. And once you've started to learn, it creates more options for you. And as Tara said, some people want to go home once they've done a little bit of shared care in centre. It certainly has that effect. But it's not for everybody. And as nurses, we accept that it's what individuals want, their choice. It's going to make them feel good about their lives. So the degree of how much shared care you do is entirely up to you. And it's very much like being on the back of the bike. If you stop cycling, somebody will carry on for you. The nurse will carry on doing the dialysis for you, but you can participate as much as you want. And if you want to get off and have your own bike, then that's great as well. So very flexible system. So as I said, it's patient choice, it's patient-led, and it's done at a patient's own pace. You get off if you want to, but the care will still carry on. So how do we do that? We train in very small steps and we build confidence and self-esteem through those small achievements. It might be just doing your tapes. Would you like to do a little bit more, or are you happy just doing that? Would you like to do your blood pressure? Would you like to just get your pack from the cupboard? You don't have to do anything with it. Little steps that can give you the confidence that you can actually do this. We're not going to jump the ladder, are we? That's a little bit too daunting, but you can see how you can make progress through those tiny steps upward and give people confidence and control. But the point is, you do it together. It's something, then that's why it's such a lovely connecting experience. You do it alongside the nurses. So it's a very nurturing experience. Because you're coming 3 times a week, it doesn't matter how long it takes you to do what you're doing, to learn whatever you're learning. You'll be able to do it again the next time you come for dialysis. So the learning can be as quick or as slow as you want it to be. Once you've learned how to do something, you may wish to do it on your own. There'll be a little form to sign to say that you're happy for that to happen, and the nurse is happy for you to do that on your own, but it will always be offered the chance of having that support if you want it. So every day when you come for dialysis, you know, it should be the case that, are you okay today? Are you all right to do your pack or to do your line or whatever you want to do? If not, we will do it for you. The help will always be there. And that's a good reason why it's not about cutting nursing staff at all, because the nurses have to be there to pick up if you don't want to do it. There may be times when you really don't want to do your participate in your care, as Tara was saying earlier, and that's the time when the nurses will just take over. So within the training, we talk about that, noticing when patients aren't really feeling up to it, checking in with them. Is it okay for you to do it or not? Is there something going on at home? Do you need a little bit of a break? Would a break help you? And we find that sometimes people do take breaks for very many reasons. And if we don't push, if we don't coerce, if we just let them come back to it when they feel like coming back to it, most people do pick it up again when they feel a little bit better about things. So we need to recognise as members of staff that everybody is different and understand their motivation for wanting to do it. People's motivation for doing things is very different. Not many patients use this particular phrase that is very common in healthcare: it will lead me to having better outcomes. Most commonly voiced by people is, everyone else is doing it, so I want to have it. I want to understand my treatment a little bit better. I want to feel I've got control over something. I might want to go home to dialyse. I don't want to go home, but I do want to feel a little bit more independent. I'd rather be busy than sitting waiting for the nurses to come and do it for me. That's a very common one. I want to be useful. I'm interested in learning how it works. I might want to go on holiday and I want to feel like I've got some control over how it happens when I go. And that's very often mentioned when people want to learn to needle, if they want to needle their own fistula when they go on holiday, so that they're looking after their own health. So in doing this, we build a much more trusting relationship with our patients, and it's a spirit of partnership that is at the centre of shared haemodialysis care. And I know it sounds quite daunting. It sounds daunting for both staff and for patients when we're talking about doing something new. But seriously, it is only just about having more involving than telling conversations in its simplest part. So whilst we might think that this is a huge thing to do, actually, you know, we should just have a little go, give it a bit of a try and see how we feel about it, and then have a little bit of a think. But it's having those involving conversations that provide patients with the permission and belief that they can do things. And it takes away a little bit of that passive role. And it starts people thinking that actually it's not that I won't or can't do it anymore. It's actually I want to do it. I want to have a go. And then people start to think, well, how do I do it? Questioning. I'll give it a go. I can do it. And yes, I can do it. It's a real sense of achievement when somebody's learned how to do something. And that not only gives the patients a buzz, but it gives us nurses a real buzz too. Because we're so proud when people have learned how to do something for themselves and they come bouncing in the next day, ready to do the next thing. So it's about providing choice, chance and opportunity. I put here what I think a shared care unit looks like when shared care is going really well. Because I think some of these things are really important. And this is what we're seeing now in the UK. So this is something that, you know, to be looking out for in your units, that there's good manager support and dedicated people that are actually leading on shared haemodialysis care. That there are links on when you go for pre-haemodialysis clinic, that the pre-dialysis nurses talk to you about shared care as well as the options for home haemodialysis or peritoneal dialysis, that it's part and parcel of that, because it's a way of doing going into hospital to be looked after, but also having the option of having some independence as well with the support behind that. There's much more involving talk as normal. People talk about you doing your own blood pressure, for instance, or getting your own pack, or being involved in conversations about your own health as completely normal. There's a real can-do attitude. So particularly during COVID, there were still units that were still keen on maintaining patients' independence so that everything hadn't disappeared out of the window during that difficult time. Shared care is the default position. Many units now in the UK, as new patients, they come in, their independence isn't taken away unless they're unwell and need to be looked after. They're immediately asked if they want to do their own blood pressure, etc. Find out where things are. They see other people doing things. So they come into an active unit. They can obviously choose to not do anything for themselves if that is their choice. But it's lovely to see people coming in and thinking, well, not everybody's lying down going to sleep. It's not a sort of a laid-back unit where nothing's actually happening. It's a much more dynamic place that encourages conversation as the norm. Patients are involved as educators, so they're doing peer work as well. They're supporting each other. The doctors are talking about it as well. They feel that it's important, and it's on everybody's agendas. And these particular units are networking with each other to improve further and share the good practice between themselves. This is just a snapshot from the website, which it'd be great if you had a little look at that. We've got Alcina here today, who's got her story on there. We've got other patient stories on there, and they're designed to help you understand what it's done for different people, what their motivation was for doing shared care, and how it's helped them as an individual, because everybody is different, and the reasons why it helps them are also different. And there's there's also resources on there that show how we teach people and ways in which we can provide information for both staff and patients as well. So we're not doing this with a hidden agenda. It's purely to improve the experience of patients on haemodialysis. And that's what makes it such a wonderful thing to teach about, because it's such a valuable gift that we can give both healthcare staff, and more importantly, we can give you as patients. We've done it for this long because it really works. It changes people's lives. We just didn't realise how valuable it was until we started to unwrap it. But I'm very grateful that we have the opportunity to speak to you today about it and enlighten you to what is possible for yourselves if that's what you would like to do. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'm going to introduce you to Donna, who's been doing shared care for quite some time now, and I'm sure you'll be interested in her story. So Donna, I believe are you just talking, or have you got slides? You're on mute, Donna.
No. I've just got I'm just going to talk, if that's okay, because I've just got my printout here. I might be better just to read it out, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I'm just going to spotlight you if that's okay, so we can see you. There we are.
Yeah.
You're now nice and big.
I'll just introduce myself then. My name's Donna Pike, and I've been working as a renal dialysis nurse up in Altnagelvin Hospital in Derry for the last 14 years. So many patients have passed through the renal unit throughout the years, all different ages, young and old. The one thing that seemed to be a common denominator among the patients was that they all felt a loss of control or independence when they had to start dialysis. A lot of them just kept saying the same things. I remember one lady who always seemed to be very cheeky all the time and very aggressive, and she was always demanding this or that. However, when I got to know her, I learned that she suffered terribly with anxiety. And when she was feeling anxious, she became aggressive. You know, that's just the way her anxiety left her feeling. She told me that her anxiety had gone through the roof when she had to start dialysis. When she found out she had to depend on dialysis, possibly for the rest of her life. She said, that's another piece of my independence gone. So I wanted to do something about that for her, to help her. There was another young girl who was just 18 years of age. She found starting dialysis very hard. She had been living an independent, carefree life, just like any other 18-year-old. Her only concern was what she was going to wear on her next night out with her friends. She felt that that was all taken away from her when she had to start dialysis. She couldn't do the things that she was used to doing anymore. She also said that she felt she had lost control of her life, and now we, the staff at the renal unit, we were making decisions for her. She didn't like that. She cried a lot at every session, and I knew I had to do something to help these patients. So luckily for me, whilst attending an EDTNA conference over in England, I heard a nurse talk about introducing shared hemodialysis care at her hospital in England.
Teresa, I can see. Where, Teresa? I can see them. Sorry, now. I can see people now. Okay.
Luckily for me, whilst attending an EDTNA conference, I heard a nurse talk about introducing shared hemodialysis care at her hospital in England. She spoke about getting patients involved in their own care and about some doing their own dialysis. I was very impressed with this. She also described the challenges that she faced, like resistance to change among the staff, time to do the shared care, staff shortages, etc. But she also spoke about the successes she was able to witness, like patients getting their independence back and taking control of their treatment and care. So I did my research and I found out about the shared care course, and I attended that in 2017. So we were the first renal unit in Northern Ireland to introduce shared care. So I wanted to make sure that it was going to work. So I started with one patient to get things off the ground. This patient was a 36-year-old lady, and she had 2 young children. She had been on dialysis for 6 years. Sorry. She had no interest in her treatment or care. She let the staff make all the decisions for her. She had no interest in her blood results. She didn't care when she was told that they were deranged. She was always fluid overloaded, coming in with about 5 or 6 litres on board. She thought a benefit of being on dialysis was that her mother would have all her ironing done by the time that she got home. And she actually joked about that. Believe it or not, she had no interest in receiving a kidney transplant. This lady was offered 3 kidneys and she refused the 3 of them. So she couldn't see the benefits of not being on dialysis. So I asked her if she would help me by being my first patient to join the shared care program, and she agreed. We worked well together and I watched her transform before my eyes. She was a very quick learner. She was very keen to learn new skills. and she couldn't believe how much knowledge she was gaining. So after a few months, she had become independent. She was inserting her own needles. She understood her blood results, and she was always trying to keep them normal by adhering to her renal diet. She soon learned about the connection with the food that she ate and her blood results. Thus, we noticed a great improvement in her phosphate levels. And instead of being like 5 or 6 litres over her target weight, she was coming in with hardly any fluid on board at all. She grew to know all the dialysis jargon and spoke as an equal to the nursing staff and corrected them when necessary. She even told me off for carrying a small sharps box, which should have been carried on a tray according to the policy that she had just read. So as time went on, she got to understand her dialysis more and more, and she knew how to achieve dialysis adequacy. Sorry. She was always trying to achieve a KT/V of 1.3. She then started to take an interest in other patients' treatment and care, and she gave them advice. She became a great advertisement for Shared Care. She was always trying to recruit new members by telling them how great it was. She was absolutely amazing, and I was bursting with pride watching her transform. Unfortunately, she started having problems with her fistula. She had to have interventions on 3 occasions, and none really worked. Because the pain, none really worked because the pain in her fistula was getting worse. She had to have very low speeds on the dialysis machine, and because of this, she was not achieving adequate dialysis. Before starting Shared Care, she would not have understood the readings on the machine, so would never have known whether she got a good dialysis or not. Since she now had all this new knowledge, she knew that she was getting a very poor dialysis and it wasn't good enough for her anymore. She finally made the decision herself that she needed to get back on the transplant list. She was very lucky because within 2 weeks, she was reactivated on the list and got a call for a new kidney. She swears that shared hemodialysis care saved her life because she said she would never have gone for a transplant as she thought she was going to live forever on dialysis. With the success of my first patient, I knew I had to keep this going and get other patients involved. I asked a consultant for help, and luckily we managed to get funding from Kidney Care UK to fund my position for 3 years. I worked very hard over the 3 years implementing the programme. I was faced with some challenges like resistance to change among staff, time, patients changing their mind about participating, staff not supporting patients in my absence, or staff rushing patients along by doing the tasks for them. With a lot of patience, I was able to overcome them. I showed that I could get the programme off the ground, sustain it, and make it grow. I had to remind staff a lot in the beginning which patients were doing shared care to ensure they did not do their tasks for them. I asked staff to support patients in my absence to ensure there was consistency. Shared care was discussed at staff meetings. I changed my shifts to be on off duty during patients training, so I was there a lot of the time. It took time for me to get people to change their mind about shared care, but it was worth the wait. Because of my success, the trust that I work for took over the funding of my post. I am now employed as a Band 6 patient-centred hemodialysis sister. So my role involves getting the patients, giving them information about shared care and inviting them to join the programme, although not everybody wants to. I'm involved in training the patients to do all the tasks in the booklet and signing them off as competent when they're ready and I feel they're ready. I then audit the tasks that they're doing every 3 months to ensure that they're keeping their standards up. I spend a lot of my time providing education sessions for new staff and students to let them see this is another service that we provide. This means they are clued in early. At any one time, I have around 12 patients on the programme. However, some say they're not on the programme, even though they're still doing a lot of the tasks. There are 26 patients doing more than 2 tasks at the minute in the renal unit, and 5 doing more than 5. Some patients find it very meaningful only doing 2 tasks, like hand washing and preparing their sterile pack. One lady says she's got a job at the renal unit and she likes to get in really early so she can do her job. She says it makes her feel useful. There is always an ebb and flow in numbers as patients get transplanted or pass away, but there's always new patients coming along with new ideas. I found that every patient is so different when it comes to learning, so I have to adapt my teaching to meet their individual needs. For example, I work with a man who is deaf. He cannot use hearing aids, but he lip reads very well. Sorry. I designed a booklet for him to help him learn. This booklet has pictures of every step of lining the dialysis machine plus instructions. So he read the instructions in the booklet to me and I lined the machine following his instructions. In this way, I was demonstrating each step for him. After a while, we changed places. Due to his deafness, I couldn't read the instructions to him. So I turned the pages while he read and followed the instructions. This worked great for him. He can now line the machine without the booklet. So I thought I will use this booklet to help all the other patients line their machine. So I gave it to my next patient, but he said he found it too stressful reading the instructions. He preferred a demonstration. This taught me the importance of considering different learning styles. We're all different and we learn in different ways. So asking patients how they like to learn is the key here. So I always give patients a choice and let them decide if they want me to show them first or give them a patient-friendly step-by-step instructions, or look at the protocols, or just jump in there and have a go. This also made me think about how I like to learn and not to impose my learning styles on others just because it suits me. So students are a great help with the shared care patients. I try to engage them on their first day if possible, but definitely in their first week. I give them a talk on shared care and get them involved in a teaching and learning exercise. Then I ask them if they would like to do a teaching session, something like teaching how to prepare a sterile pack. I inform them in advance that I will be writing a good report on their portfolio to let their lecturer know how they help me with the shared care patients. So getting involved with shared care patients provides students with a good opportunity to help empower patients. They help me with shared care patients by supporting, teaching, and praising them while they're doing their tasks. So in return, I recognise their contribution to patient education and give them a good report. So it's not all about nurses teaching patients. Times are changing. I have a shared care patient who is now doing all tasks. She teaches students and new nurses how to line the machine. She also corrects staff when necessary, just like my previous patient. So she is an example of empowerment. She speaks as an equal to the staff. She makes decisions about her treatment that work best for her. She says no to the staff if she doesn't agree with their plan of care and advises otherwise. She knows her limitations. She's confident and assertive. She is so busy doing all these things that she forgets about her anxiety. She said her anxiety has now changed to confidence. So seeing patients grow in this way gives me real job satisfaction. I feel proud of my patients when I see them progress. Also, it is great during busy times or staff shortages, as the patients are able to do jobs that the nurses would normally do, but they might not have the time. So it's important to capture new nurses early to let them know that shared hemodialysis care is part of their induction into the renal unit, so they see it in action on their first day. Shared care has become the norm in our unit. Everyone is involved in some way. When I see a member of staff reading the patient's chart to see which tasks they're doing, I take a step back and let them work with the patient. I always ask the patient how they get on with the nurse and make a point of giving feedback to the nurse saying things like the patient felt really good and patient, and help them with their shared care. So more nurses now have completed the virtual course for this year. We will keep growing and empowering our patients to be equal partners in their care. I feel it is very important to have a doctor on board on the shared care team. I had great support at the beginning when I was implementing shared care from a doctor who has unfortunately since left the unit. My next plan is to invite one of the doctors to the next shared care meeting to get that level of support back, because it's so important. I will keep making shared care grow in my unit by getting more patients and more staff involved. I feel it is very important that shared care is not just about me, but all staff learning new skills to help their professional development. What I would like to do in the future with all the renal units in the trust is to link in with them at the beginning of their shared care journey and be there as support to help them and guide them through the steps that I've been through myself. I feel the most important thing to focus on is empowering our patients. They don't have to be ruled by their dialysis treatment. Instead, through shared care, they can be in control of their treatment and care. Thus, they are actually empowering themselves. So thank you for listening.
Great. Thanks, Donna. That was really, really informative. I learned an awful lot there. So next, we're going to hand over to Alcina O'Brien, who is based in Galway.
Hello, everybody in the group. My name is Alcina O'Brien. I'm from Loughrea in Galway. I'm 49 years of age. And just a little bit about my background. I have 26 years being diagnosed diabetic, and I'm on dialysis for the last 3 years in a clinic called Wellstone in Galway. The other thing is I'm on the double transplant list with St Vincent's Hospital for pancreas and kidney. And I'm on that list the last 4 years. So when I was in Wellstone one evening, the CNM3 asked me if I'd be interested in shared hemodialysis care. And I really had never heard anything about it. And she provided me with a leaflet. And the plan was that one of the managers, one of the staff nurses, and myself would attend Tania's program on shared care. And to say the least, I was so excited about this. And my background, I'm a qualified general nurse. I'm a qualified midwife. And I also spent years as a clinical placement coordinator working with nursing students. And then my last post was a clinical facilitator for international nurses. So this for me was like maintaining a little bit of my career within a new area that I was now on the other side of the fence as a patient. And when I started dialysis first, I felt extremely vulnerable as a patient. I felt very out of control because I was usually the one in the uniform, the other side. I didn't have enough knowledge to be as active in my care as I would like. That took some time for me. I didn't have any experience in hemodialysis or dialysis before my own journey. So some of the nurses might say, oh, you know yourself, Alcina. And I go, oh, no, come back. I don't know, because I actually haven't specialized in this area. I really don't know much about it. So I was about 2 years on dialysis when I was asked to join the shared care program. And it was an optimum time for me because in those 2 years, I suppose I got to know my own body, how I reacted to things. I learned a lot about the whole procedure, and I suppose there was times within that I was very sick. I improved, what helped me to improve, and things like that. So I attended Tania's program, and Tania modestly says that she's passionate about it, and it just oozed out of her. I absolutely was engaged from day one. And what I thought was very helpful is we to fill out a questionnaire beforehand. So from the questions that Tania had laid out, I answered them, and by me answering them, I knew I was on the same page as her on what I thought and learning skills, and I suppose my experience from working in the posts previous to that. So I attended the program. I was captivated with the whole idea of the individualism of it, the partnership. I definitely think it's the way to go in the future, where we're involving patients, that we're getting feedback from the actual people who are receiving the care and who are communicating on a daily basis with staff, what makes them happy, what can improve. And, you know, we often speak about maybe instead of complaining and maybe where things go wrong for us and what we don't like, that we also include things that we do like and give that feedback as well. Definitely the program is very adaptable, and that can take a lot of fear away from people who might just want to do one or two things, and that's fine for them, or if they want to do all of their tasks or whatever they want to get out of their sessions, it's totally acceptable, and it's patient-led, as Tania said. I have to say it gave me confidence in relation to speaking with my peers. I always knew like that, you know, by liaising with other people in the similar situation as you and going through emotional similarities and the physical similarities, that there's huge benefit in that. And by, I suppose, just learning a little bit more about shared care, I wanted to participate in it, but I also wanted to make use of my time while in dialysis, that I would actually be able to use what I've learned and reach out to other patients. And I suppose that would have been kind of what I would have done in my career, as in reaching out to nursing students and policies and guidelines, and, you know, doing things, you know, doing things right, with huge job satisfaction. And I suppose this time it was looking in a different direction, where maybe just putting your hand back, reaching out to another patient who's coming up the line similar to yourself, and just giving them that support. But I think it was the development of my own confidence in relation to shared care, and also the education I got around the importance of your peers and listening and sharing stories. And an example I could share is one of the gentlemen who actually is my own age in dialysis, very strong tennis player, very active. He's a diabetic as well, and he was saying that he wouldn't really think about going for the pump because it was easier for him to manage his tennis with the injections. So I picked up the courage and I said, look, I have an insulin pump. I found it very anxious at the start. I didn't know if I should go for it or not. I said, but it has changed my life. I have a continuous sensor as well, and I was trying to explain to him, you know, how good it was. But the minute I said to him, you know, it really helped you with the tennis, then he was kind of a little bit more interested. And he's now on a waiting list for a pump, you know. So I think, no, that's not just because of me, but it's to share the story. And, you know, if you hear from somebody who has a pump, who has, you know, the experience and can explain the benefit of it, you know, it is really invaluable. And likewise with the dialysis. Also, an experience I'd like to share. I was struggling one day. I came in, and for a period of time, I had been sick and I lost a lot of weight. But then as I was improving, my weight was creeping up, and a lot of the comments were, oh, you have this much fluid on, oh, you know. And I said, no, I definitely haven't that much fluid on, I have weight on. And it took me a number of weeks to try and sort this weight out. And in the end, it materialized into me getting really upset because I felt nobody was listening to me. Even though they were listening to me, they were recommending this, and we put you on the quick line and we do these different things. But I really felt nobody understood that I'd be at home really looking after my fluid balance and trying to limit things. And then when I come in and comment to my med saying, oh, gee, you're 4 litres up or whatever. And I've got, no, definitely not, you know. So After speaking with the CNM, then she gave me a little bit of autonomy to, you know, have a look and record, go a little bit further and to see how my blood pressure is when I came in and what my weight was. And it just gave me a little bit of independence, and it gave me a little bit of control back, that when the comments might be made about how much fluid is on, I kind of was able to you know, explain where I was in relation to all of that, and I did actually feel very listened to. But around the same time, a new nurse took over my care, and there's certain patients assigned to different nurses, and I was so impressed by this lady. She came and she spoke to me, and she said that she cares for her patients in a slightly different way. And her way was to do individual reports for her patients, particularly after monthly bloods. And she wrote down all the different values, and you know, little arrows up, little arrows down. It was very visual, and for me that worked really, really well. And she also, you know, I was struggling a little bit with the potassium diet. We didn't have a dietitian at the time in the unit. And, you know, there was things I'd forgotten about. And I was saying, oh, Gina, yeah, I forgot about that. And, you know, so she'd give you little goals, or, you know, we set goals between the two of us. And it was the partnership. She'd ask me, what would I like to work on? What did I feel was important for me to have better health and all the rest? And there was a lot of trust and friendship brought up between the two of us. And for an example, I told her, you know, God, I've forgotten about this food and that food in relation to potassium. And she went and she got some recipes, and, you know, she's a Polish lady, and, you know, she was sharing her ideas and different dishes and things like that. And again, it was the individualism. It was, you know, she was there working really hard for me. And I told her that it was the first time in a long time that I felt really cared for. And she got quite emotional, and she said, no, this is just my job. And I said, no, but you have to understand, you are after lifting me up so much by spending this time with me, setting my goals for me at my level, whatever I wanted to do. And then each month after that, she'd review what we were working on, and it made me so determined, because when I saw the potassium level coming down, I saw phosphates, as somebody mentioned there, when I saw them improving, it made me much more determined, and it made me feel I was doing this for me, for my body, for my future, and for, you know, good outcomes in health. But this nurse also expressed to me that she got a huge job satisfaction from it, because she could see me brightening up a little bit and becoming more involved in my own care. And because I was well able to do it, I just needed that little bit of, she was just like, just that little bit of encouragement. And it was the one-on-one, rather than if different nurses were coming each different day, I might not have built as much of a friendship and partnership or collaboration as I did with this lady. Now, she wasn't there every day, but she came every month to go through the bloods and to check in on me. Was I happy with everything that was last week? And actually at the start, when she said that she worked a little bit different to other nurses, she said, if you're not happy with the way I do things, we can totally talk about it, change it around so that it suits you. So from the onset, she, you know, she prepared me, told me what she'd like to do, but it was very much my choice on whether I would like to do that or not. And when we had the first month over, would you like to continue for this? And I was explaining to her that this is actually very helpful. I could see my progress, and I could really feel valued as a patient, and she invested so much time, and it felt very personal to me. And I suppose that would be the big example that I could give to date, where the emotion and the connectiveness and the interest worked very well for both of us, in particular myself. Also, I have to say, in relation to working with Tania and promoting, you know, we work on patient focus groups and things like that. Again, you know, we learn so much from our peers and we share stories, and it's all really for the benefit of improving patient care. And I suppose I'm a little bit of an advantage having the nursing side and the patient side. And I suppose moving forward, I definitely will be promoting shared care. And I actually hope to maybe go down the route of patient advocacy work or something like that, and kind of make use of all of this experience that I've experienced in the last 4 years. And if anybody wants to ask me any questions at a later stage, please feel free to do so. And thank you for listening to me and for your time.
Thank you so much, Alcina. I think from that we understand, don't we, that shared care doesn't have to necessarily be about the tasks. It is about the partnership, that spirit of partnership that I talked about earlier. And that's a really important message to get over, because your staff, if you wanting to do things for yourself or wanting to be partners in care, might not be at the stage where they're ready to let go the control of the tasks necessarily, but you can certainly talk to them about getting involved in other aspects, about supporting each other, maybe looking after somebody, a new patient that comes along. If you're an established patient, that might be a really important buddy system that you can maybe use. And I think Anne-Marie will be talking about that in a few minutes. So thank you ever so much, Alcina.
Thank you.
So can we come to Emer and Anne-Marie for the next little bit? We're going to do a bit of a double act, aren't you?
Hi, I don't know how to take off my camera. So I don't know what I've done wrong. Sorry.
Press number 8 on the keyboard.
Thank you.
F8.
Oh, F8. Hold on. F8.
That might work. It worked for me one time.
Thank you. Hold on now. No, I won't waste time, because anyone who knows me knows what I look like. And after my journey on the M50, I don't particularly want to share my head. So I'll play around with it in a moment. So I just want to thank Carol and Tania for the opportunity to come and share our experiences in St Vincent's Hospital. I've learned an awful lot from the speakers already, and yet again, Tania, you're teaching me things every time you talk. So how we, when I say we, and I genuinely mean that, not because we're on a platform, Anne-Marie Leonard is a guru, and she's a pure legend in St Vincent's Hospital. I know Anne-Marie too many years that she would care to remember, both in pre-dialysis and in peritoneal dialysis. So I would actually genuinely say I don't see Anne-Marie as a patient. I see her as a friend and as a colleague. By the by, I happen to be one of her nurses, but just incidentally. And what happened was, just kind of getting put into context, because people who know me and here in Dublin, one of our consultants had worked in the UK and had dealings with shared care in London, actually in the Royal Free. And about, God, I think it was 2 years ago, Emery, we were talking about it and yada, yada, yada. So that was fine, and we talked. And then, similar to our colleague there in Wellstone, we developed an information leaflet, and there was a lot of cogging from Tania Barnes' website for that purpose, and I admit that. So it was a case of me getting my head around it, and obviously I made inquiries and I got onto Tania's course, but then it was a case of, on a one-to-one basis, is bringing it into the unit, and you know, how am I going to get, you know, these men and women to come on the journey with me? So we were doing it, I think, actively, as in patient involvement, about a year, about 14 months now, July last year. And we've had many patients, as has been previously said, who have done different tasks. Some patients have done all aspects of their care. Some chaps, one in particular, who Emery will remember, to get him to weigh himself and wash his hands was a big kudos. And then we moved on to him doing his blood pressure and then with support over time, kind of programming the machine. And then when I asked about, you know, would you like to do any more? He said, why would I when you're here? So I said, fine. But so we've got male and female, all ages, all types, all backgrounds on the program. We lost a few to transplant, which is great, but sucker for us. So, you know, in the clinic, in the pre-dialysis clinic, since developing this job and this cohort of patients, being involved with it, I have started educating patients about shared care in the CKD clinic, because up to that, I didn't know anything about it. So I was going to talk about what I didn't know. And I'll shut up now and let Emery talk. And just a big thank you to Emery. She's an absolute inspiration, and anything about shared care, whether I'm having problems or heartaches or headaches, it's Emery I go to, and she will always guide me, and I'm listening to her from a patient perspective. And I'm not just saying that because we're on kind of live TV. I've said it before to her, and she's legend, as are the other patients, but I couldn't have them all on because that would be a bit like hogging the screen, and Tania wouldn't like that. So I'll just over to you, Emery. I'm sure that if anyone has questions, just ask me afterwards.
Hi, everybody. Well, as Emer said, I'm Anne-Marie, and I attend St Vincent's dialysis unit for the last 2 years. But as I said, I know Emer myself for too many years to remember, and she's always been support and control, and she knows me better than myself sometimes. And as I said, everybody, we've been planning for the last 6 years. I've been saving my arm for a fistula, and I've had kidney disease since I was 13. So I'm now 45, so it was over 30 years I've been dealing with this and been talking about dialysis and stuff like that come along. But when, as probably most of you know, when the initial conversation goes, right, we're ready to go, we're ready to start, it's shock, it's horror, it's like, oh God, what's this? And at the beginning, it took over my life. It kind of like, I felt like I'd lost control. I had kind of, this was it, like I had, me independence was gone. My whole week revolved around dialysis, around this, that, and everything had to work around me at dialysis. So I kind of got very down in myself. And Emer, as I said, knows me better than myself, kind of noticed this, and she was always popping ideas. We'd always stop and have a chat, like along the way. She'd just pop over to me in the unit or whatever, and she mentioned the shared care, and I was like, oh, I don't think I'd be able for that. No, that's not me. I wouldn't be able. I'm not, like, I watched the nurses and I'm like, I'm not qualified like that. I couldn't do anything like that. And she just said, Emery, we'll try it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. We'll just take little steps step by step. So that's right. Let's give it a go. I've nothing to lose. I'm here for 3.5 hours. I might as well be doing something than just lying back feeling sorry for myself. So off I went. We started with the blood pressure and little things, and Emer's great, like she's in, shows you this, shows you that. But I had been watching the nurses as I was going along, so I kind of knew little bits, but not like qualified, but I was watching what they did, how they connected, how they disconnected. So I had a little bit of an idea, but I never ever thought that I'd be able to do it myself. But with the long story short, we took it step by step, and I kind of felt I was getting control back of my life. I found like little things, like I was paying more attention to, like even the weight, like I was coming in some days and I was, as someone else seen it and others have said, I was 4 liters over, and I was like, that's not fluid. Like I knew myself, I might have had a big meal the night before, but I was like afraid to say that, and I just sit back and say nothing to the nurses and go, oh grand. So they'd be trying to take 3.5 liters of fluid out me, and I knew it wasn't fluid. Some of it was food. I was after putting on a bit of weight or whatever. I'd be lying on the bed with cramps, you know what I mean, uncomfortable, going, looking at the clock on the machine, going, how long more? How long more? Then I got to, as I started doing the training and stuff, I understood it more. I understood that, like, they're not school teachers. You come into the nurse and you're like, you're up 4 kilos, and you go, that's not fluid. I had a big meal last night, like, so I know my fluid was okay, so it's probably about 2 liters you need to take off, where I was able to have that little bit of a say, and even that alone was enough to kind of go, well, I am paying attention to me treatment now. I know what's going on. So today, it's not shared care is like, it's not self-care. No matter where you are, like today alone,
Exactly.
I went in today and I used we have 2 types of machines in our unit, and I've been trained on the new one. I had a little brief encounter with the old machines at the very start, but it's that long ago that I forget, like I haven't got a great memory that I had when I was younger. So I went in today, and obviously there was no bloodlines for the new machine. So I have my own little room, and I went in and I was like, oh, wrong machine, what am I going to do? So went out to the nurses and I said, sorry girls, I don't know how to use that machine. And Gloria says, no problem, of course I knew that. I'm right, I'll be in a minute, you go on in, I'll be in and I'll sort you out straight away. So I said, grand. So I went in and then I was like, right, I'll wash up anyway and I'll check my blood pressure and sure, get me pack ready. And when Gloria came in, she says, thought I was doing this for you. I says, you are. She's like, you have it all done. I just have to connect your line. And I said, well, that's the bit I'm not sure of. Just anything, anytime, you know what I mean? And that's the way it's always been. If I'm not well, I'll say to a nurse, like, I really don't feel like doing this today. I just had a bad night. I didn't sleep. I suffer sometimes with restless legs. And I'll say, I didn't sleep at night. Like, I'm just out. And say, Emery, go ahead. No problem. Sit back. And they take straight over. And the days that I am there, I can take from line of machine right to the end, do the whole complete treatment myself. The nurses will still pop in. They'll say, how are you? Is there anything you need? Can I help you with anything? There's always support there. Sometimes they just come in for a chat just to catch up and you see how I'm doing mentally. And I found it really, really good, like for my own confidence. Where now I kind of like say, well, no, that's not this. I think this is, my phosphate's up a little bit because my potassium is down. I'm paying more attention to all my bloods. I read them. I check, I kind of get iron fortnightly, and sometimes I check my bloods. And one day I was there and the nurse was coming in to connect me up with the iron, and I says, I think my iron levels are a bit high. I don't think I needed this week. And she had a look and she goes, yeah, you're right, Emery, very good. You know what I mean? So I kind of felt, and you feel a bit proud in yourself, kind of going, yeah, well, I am noticing, I'm paying attention. I know why this is happening. I know why that's happening. I can manage my fluid allowance. I know I've actually had a gastric sleeve at the end of August. So my fluid allowance is just complete. I'm at a minus the whole time now, like coming in because the weight is coming down. So I have to judge. So the nurses are like, Emery, what much do we need to take off? And I'll say, well, I need 2 liters today. Or I had a bit much yesterday, I need 3 liters. You know, I'm able to have that experience and tell them what I'm doing, like, you know what I mean? So I'm waffling on a little bit here, but anything that anyone needs to ask me, there's no problem. And I think if nobody takes anything out of this, except for even just when they're on your treatment the next day, even just ask the nurse, why are you doing that? Why are you doing this? It doesn't have to be everything. You can just come in, do your blood pressure, you know what I mean, or weigh yourself, go to your machine and sit there and wait for the nurses. But that's all part of shared care. And that's as important as doing it from start to finish. Having your own bit of control over your own treatment and knowing what you want to do and having the choice to say, yes, I want to do it. No, I don't want to do it. I think that's the most important bit. So I'll leave it at that. And if anybody wants to ask me any questions or anything that I haven't addressed, you can go ahead. So thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Anne-Marie. Well, we're hearing some really powerful stories and inspirational stories tonight, and thanks to everybody for telling those stories. And I know Eddie will add his thanks at the end. The questions are piling in, so I'm going to start asking them. So the first question is, would this shared care approach include prepping the dialysis machine, getting the trolley ready with the items? So who'd like to answer that?
Sorry, Marie.
Anne-Marie.
Go ahead, you're the boss.
No. Yeah. Okay, it's your show. Your show.
It's whatever you choose to do yourself. Like, as from my point of view, I can go in, I can like line machine from start, then connect it up, put the dialyzer in, get me pack ready, connect myself up on the bed, deal with me alarms if the machine is alarming. I know why they're alarming. Know when I have to call a nurse to kind of go, my blood pressure's after dropping too low, I need help here, you know, to kind of know the signals. But you could have as little as like going in saying, I'm not into touching the machine, I don't want to do the machine. you can come in and say, I'll open the pack, or I could, as if you're on with the fistula, you can say, I'll just do the strips when you're getting washed up to the nurse, and I just like start tearing the strips at the side for you. It's choice, personal choice, whatever you're comfortable with and whatever you want to do. It's not like, oh, I've started this, I have to commit to doing more. You can do as much as a little as you want to do.
Okay, great. Thanks, Emery. And then we had a question about is there a role for the family and close other people in shared care? And the answer to that is a very definite yes to that. Can I ask, are there any other questions? Maybe I could ask a question then. You said, Tania, that, and I know Olivia is going to ask a question in a minute, but that shared care isn't a recipe for reducing the staffing in a unit. And I know this from feedback from patients, this is a concern of people. How do we make sure that doesn't happen?
As far as the trust is concerned, the hierarchy is concerned, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I think the units that, all I can say is that the units that have implemented it so far have found that, like Donna said, it ebbs and flows a lot, shared care. People move on, you've always got new people coming in from the waiting list. So there's always a need for staff to be there. So even though there have been one or two private units that have kind of thought that we can save some time and staff here, they've actually not been able to, because the need is still there. Patients, if they're doing shared care for themselves, as you heard from Tara and various others, and Anne-Marie in particular, if people aren't if they're not well enough to do it, the staff have to step in. So they always have to have the full complement of staff. So whether they're teaching or whether they're doing direct care, it's still caring for our patients. And as you heard from Elsina, once you've trained people to do certain things, then you can still teach them a little bit more. There's still more conversations to have, maybe about their blood results or about transplantation or about their mental health. So it's giving the opportunity to care at a much deeper level, actually, rather than just doing all of the care. So in some units, they've actually devoted 15 minutes of care per patient, whether that's for teaching, hands-on, training them to look at their blood results, whatever. So in actual fact, it just hasn't happened that staff have been cut at all.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. Donna, you wanted to add something to that? Just ask you to unmute. Yeah, we still can't hear you. Okay, you able to unmute there, Donna? Okay, the technology obviously ain't working. We'll come back to you, Donna. Okay.
Sorry, Carol, can I just say from this kind of the Republic from the South point of view, it has had that whole staffing debate or question or worry that doesn't come into the equation. This is about encouraging, empowering, and letting patients who are on dialysis have involvement in their journey. That's all it is. Staffing actually, sometimes it actually supports staffing because they can wash their hands, they open their pack, what someone is putting somebody else on. So not once in our unit anyway have I had any conversation or any feedback that it was a worry about staffing or whatnot cutting back. Far from it. And as Anne-Marie alluded to, the nurses and carers as well, actually HCAs who are involved as well, they're just as important in the journey. They're delighted, if someone can do a little something, even weigh themselves, it gives them a minute or two to maybe assist somebody else who's, getting on or off a wheelchair or, so on and so forth. So that in my experience in our unit, it hasn't come into the equation or conversation, just to kind of lessen people's worries.
Yeah, okay. Olivia, you wanted to ask a question?
Hello, everybody. Thanks very much for all the information on shared care. I work in Cavan as a clinical nurse manager. I'm just wondering, how long is the training to implement shared care?
We do a 2-day workshop online, Olivia. It was originally a 4-day course face-to-face in Sheffield, but since COVID we transferred it to online, and various people who've been talking today have been on the online course. So maybe it's about asking Emer, is that enough, Emer, to get going on shared care?
Personally, I would say yes, you have your 2 days, but ideally for me, I found it very beneficial, Tania, to have I think I did maybe 3 or 4 sessions with you, for my own personal confidence. Yes, I know the theory and all the rest and different types of learning and adapting, but also the beauty of the form and your class and online workshop, and this is really important, Olivia, and you can always get in touch with me, is to have someone you can ask another question of, and how did XYZ deal with ABC situation, and ways and means, and looking at it from a total fresh perspective. Because when you're involved in this, you have to have a kind of, focus on the prize and getting this up and going. But by getting involved with the program with Tania and her team, it's just amazing. And I've said it before. So I do think, yes, the 2 days, but I think additional days, if that's feasible, as per Tania's numbers, is so important. And I'm hoping to. Tania doesn't know this, but I'll hook up for the December meeting. Yeah, by the way. No, 2 yes in theory, and then it's knowing, if it's feasible, to learn more.
So it's 2 intense days where you learn the foundations of shared care, and then go off with a plan for your team. So your team it includes patients and staff. So you go off and implement your plan, then you come back and talk about it a month later. We have the 2nd intensive day, and then what Emer was talking about are there's network meetings in between. So once every couple of months I have a network meeting, which is anybody that is involved or wants to be involved in shared care who is a member of staff, and we talk about current topics. So again, that gives you a chance to ask questions and look at a particular theme of shared care, and we have presentations on that as well. So we don't just do the 2 days and then leave you. You have the opportunity to join in the network as well, which keeps the motivation going. So it's quite a nice, really big community of staff all working together, and you can always contact me as the sort of link person to link you in with others.
Excellent, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. I can link in then with you, Tania or Emer.
Yes, please do. Yes.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay, Simon, you have a question?
Yeah, sorry. Does the HSE have a policy in this, or the National Renal Office, or anything like that, or is it just a hospital by hospital basis?
You're muted, Emer.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from an Irish perspective, there's no actual policy on it, but I know Professor George Malott, he's, as you know, the lead in the NRO. He is a big advocate of self-care, shared care. And at the moment, it is kind of hospital by hospital or trust by trust, whatever you want to call it. So there's no policy per se, but I do know Prof. Malott is very interested in this area. But I think each hospital will be dealing with that at a local level at the moment. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, thanks, Emer. Cheers.
All right.
In the Western Trust, we have developed like a procedure. We would do ISO, they collect all information every month, and it's a procedure that has been drawn up for shared care, for getting patients involved. We follow the procedure, for each patient coming on to shared care, and it's used within the Western Trust.
Yeah, I think it is an important point you've raised, Simon. We don't have a clear national guideline or model of care for dialysis. I know it's something that Professor Malott is working on, and obviously patients will be involved in finalising that, but I'm not sure when that's going to happen. But it is something we in the Kidney Association are very anxious to see, so that, you know, there's clear expectations of the treatment that patients can expect. And he has done a lot of work, like even putting in a case for every unit to have a psychologist and a social worker. I think that's pretty close to being accepted in adult units, at least, wherever about children's units. So there is some progress there, but there's a long way to go. So
perfect, thanks.
Yeah, we're coming near the end of time. We want to do, as always, before we finish, and Eddie will thank all the participants, just to do a quick poll, if the technology works, to get your feedback on the session, and also assess the level of interest in this whole concept of shared care. I always remember being very shocked, really, when I first came into the IKA 2 years ago, and the patient said to me, it feels like the doctor owns my body, and that really stuck with me. And I think shared care is a great way of allowing patients to take back control of their bodies and feel that they're in control. So could I ask you just to take a couple of minutes to answer these questions, which hopefully you're going to see on your screen shortly. Just a couple of questions, if you could just answer them so that we get some feedback on this and how useful you found it. Can people see it?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So people are now piling in, answering these questions, which is terrific. A significant amount of people so far hadn't heard about shared dialysis. And delighted to see so far the session has sparked an interest in doing shared care, which is great, which was one of the reasons we did it. And everybody has found the meeting a good use of their time, which is, again, terrific. We really like to see that. So we still have a few more people to put in their answers. So we'll give them a couple more minutes. And I'll just call on Eddie while we're doing the poll. Eddie, would you like to say the concluding words? Eddie is our national chairperson and himself a transplant patient.
Thanks, Carol, and thanks everybody for joining us here tonight. Thanks to Tania and Donna and Emer, the professionals, and the two patients, Asina and Anne-Marie, for sharing their stories with us. I'm sure everybody found it very informative and food for thought for the next while. Probably just, probably think about it, and I'm sure some people might decide to take it a bit step further. So please, contact any of the professionals there, and they will help you and advise you if you want to go down that road. So thanks for everybody for joining us tonight, and it's great to see you all. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Eddie. So again, we'd love to hear from you, as Eddie said. If more information, definitely we can follow up, and we'll also have an article on this in Support magazine, and also the recording will be available on the website as well. Okay, so thanks very much.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Cheers.
Good night, everyone. Thanks, bye.
Nice, thank you. Tania, thank you. She might be gone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Anne-Marie, talk to you.
Thanks, Emer. See you Friday. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Anne-Marie,
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Yes.
thank you so much. You're a fabulous speaker.
I get carried away sometimes, you know what I mean? But it all started with you and Emer at the start, like so. Yes,
Send me your phone number so I can call you if that's okay.
no problem. I'll send it in the email to you like this, no
Thank
problem.
you.
Right.
Thank
I'm getting my fistula done on Friday morning, so I probably won't be available on Friday. So
Okay.
any other time I'm available.
But I
No
can,
problem.
I can contact you then. That'd be
Yep.
fabulous.
No,
Okay.
brilliant. No problem. Thanks, Tania. Thanks, Carol.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
everybody. Thanks to you
Thank
all.
you.
That was great. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Okay.